Good afternoon. Welcome to Drive Time Sports. Ray Tucker, and I'm looking for Rick Schaeffer. Rick, are you there? What? Where is Rick here? Hmm. All right, that's a great start to the show. Not sure where Rick Schaeffer is. He's not on the button where he normally is. Not sure what happened there. So, good afternoon. Welcome to Drive Time Sports. Let me do this very quickly.
Ray Tucker on Drive Time Sports is brought to you by Gwatney Buick GMC.
It is an absolute gorgeous day here in the state of Arkansas. I hope you folks had a wonderful weekend. We got about 6.5, 7 hours of rain, which was about 1.5 inches, 2 inches of rain over the weekend, which was, well, we needed. All right, JoJo. Freaky Joe, talk to me.
We're going to get Rick going now.
All right. So who dropped the ball here? All right, the Major League Baseball draft, that's something we're going to talk about today. As you know, Rick is an avid baseball fan. And the Hogs, you there, Rick?
Yes, I'm here, but we're having some kind of technical difficulties.
Oh, you're telling me.
With my tie line. So anyway, I am trying right now to pull up the board. I'm not having much luck with that either.
All right. Well, I've got the
You got the boards anyway. Here we are. You can just tell me when we have some calls here for just a minute. We'll get through this. Randy Rainwater's out today. If you hadn't already told our listeners that.
I haven't.
Ray Tucker, Rick Schaeffer, and our only guest tonight is Pat Bradley at 6 o'clock with maybe a coach that Ray has contacted for 5:30. And so we'll just tell you what's happened in the Major League Baseball draft. And again, you just interrupt me anytime a call comes in. Arkansas fully expected to lose Aiden Miller. He was drafted in the first round by the Philadelphia Phillies. His slot is $2.97 million, so you know he's probably going to get at least that. He's gone. Kendall George, outfielder, $2.36 million is his slot with the Dodgers. He was the 36th pick of the draft, 50th pick of the draft, and he went a lot higher than anybody expected. But Nazan Zanatello, he's a shortstop. He went to the Red Sox. His slot is $1.7 million, so he probably will be gone.
Yes.
Walker Martin, pardon me?
I said yes for $1.7 million.
Yeah, that's right. Walker Martin, shortstop, drafted 52nd spot by the Giants. He slots at 1.62. And then in the competitive balance C, it was Jackson Wiggins going to the Cubs for $1.1 million. That was yesterday. Here's what's happened today so far. They're through part of the 8th round, and they're going to draft through 10 rounds today. Hunter Holland, Razorback pitcher, was drafted to number 74 by the Reds. He slots at $975,000. He'll take that. The 100th pick of the draft was Javian Josenberger. Went to the Orioles, outfielder, slots at $671,000. He will most likely take that. The 150th pick was another Razorback signee, Dylan Quaisted, right-handed pitcher, went to the Twins. He slots at $412,600. That one's, we don't know about that one. When you start talking about $412,000, that sounds like a lot of money till you start paring it down. Would the Twins use some of their other slot money to pay Dylan Quaisted? We'll wait and see. Chase Forfan, Razorback outfielder, picked in the 6th round by the Blue Jays. Slots at $304,700. Fletcher Westfall, an outfielder from, that's it. That's it at this point. Just those guys. So no other signees have been drafted through where they are in the 8th round.
So your mentality, you're coming out of high school, and your lifelong goal is to play Major League Baseball. But the money's not there. Let's say $500,000, which is a lot of money. But you go play college baseball, and your stock rises, and you get the privilege of being a college student and finding out what life's really about. There are a lot of lonely bus rides in minor league baseball. And
I can remember, this is a long time ago, Barry Lunny Jr. was drafted I don't know. I can't remember what round. I think it was by the Twins out of high school. And of course, he had signed to play football and was also going to play baseball at the University of Arkansas. I knew his dad pretty well, Barry Lenny Sr. At the time, I was still working at the athletic department. He absolutely did not want his son going to sign a baseball contract. So he called me and he said, "What can I tell him?" I said, "Well, first of all, you can tell him exactly what you just said, Ray. You're going to be on a bus. You're going to be on a bus with people that are totally unlike you. Most of them are going to be mostly interested in sex and alcohol. They are going to be, and you're going to stay in cheap hotels. You're not going to be able to eat that well because the per diem's not so good. And if you're lucky, after about 3 or 4 years of that, you might make it to the major league." He said, "Thank you." He came to the University of Arkansas. So that's kind of what happened with Barry Lenny Jr. And that's what these guys face. But that's why you have to say how much bonus money is involved to determine whether it's worth it. Now, Scott Boras, the infamous agent who signs all these guys to ridiculous contracts, said several years ago, and this is several years ago, and money's gone up, that to make it worth it, you need to get at least $1 million. So when you hear these guys slot, as the first two we talked about with the Razorbacks, 2.97, 2.36, you got to go. 1.7, 1.62, you got to go. Jackson Wiggins, 1.1, didn't even pitch this year. You got to go. Hunter Holland will go because he's got leverage right now, so he'll get close to $1 million. Josenberger will go. He'll get 671. But now here's a guy like Quaysted coming out of high school. He's a right-handed pitcher, 412. That's a tough one because Trey Biddy kind of mocked the draft and talked about the money and said maybe it's not quite as much as you think it is. And I don't know about that, but say $412,000. Okay, so you're in a tax bracket that you're probably going to pay, say, 25% of that in taxes if you handle it well. So now you're down to about $300,000, and you have to remember that the salaries you get, even though they've increased the salaries for minor league baseball, they're still not significant. And until you make the major leagues, you're not going to make much money. So let's say you're 3 years in the minor leagues. You're going to use most of your bonus money just to live. And so that's where you got to think about that and think, okay, if I go to the University of Arkansas or Vanderbilt or LSU or wherever they're thinking, and I can project higher, I'm a 5th-round pick. If I can project to be a 1st or a 2nd-round pick, now the money is significantly better. And plus, I've had 3 years of college experience. I'm in a much better position. Then maybe that's the way to go. So anybody drafted from this point on, Dave Van Horn will have a shot at keeping them. Not necessarily. Last year, I think there was either last year or the year before, there was a guy drafted in the 17th round. They thought, okay, we'll get him. Well, they still had money left over from their pool money, and they gave him a lot more than you'd give 17th round, and Arkansas lost him. So you don't know until August the 1st.
All right, Rick, we've got a couple of callers here, and we will start the day with Savage, who's in Cabot. Let me get him locked in. All right. Savage, go ahead. You're on the air.
What's going on, fellas? You doing all right?
Yes, sir.
Hi, Savage. Good.
Hey, Rick, if you could put two people together, if you put Ken Griffey and Ricky Henderson together, you'd have De La Cruz. I mean, this kid is off the charts. Yeah, is Ricky Henderson, did he ever run for the stolen base cycle, if that is such a thing?
Probably, but stealing home it's not as rare, obviously, the perfect game or unassisted triple play or anything like that, but it is a rare play. But Ellie De La Cruz, the way he did it against Milwaukee the other night, I'm sure you've seen it.
Yes,
and that's why you're calling about it. Absolutely astonishing. The guy steals second, and the throw is pretty good, but he beat the throw. Then, after the hitter takes a pitch, the next pitch he steals third. Obviously, the third baseman's playing wide of the bag. He never even recovers in time to get to the bag, so he steals it without him even covering. Then he starts kind of sneaking down the line. The pitcher just turns his back to him, and he comes dashing down, dives head first, wasn't even close. If the throw had been on the plate, it wouldn't have been close. I don't know if I've seen that. It just was absolutely astonishing. Usually when you think of a double steal, or stealing home, it's because somebody's stealing second, you're stealing home. This was absolutely mind-boggling what he did.
That's what's good about baseball in general. It reminds you of just sandlot baseball. The guy's out there playing a fun game, and the awareness of the base running, and he's explosive. Just took advantage of the situation. I loved it. It was good baseball. It's just all the way around. But that's all I had, guys. Y'all have a good one.
All right. And for our listeners out there, I watched that on Instagram earlier today. If you're looking for it, I'm sure you can go online and find that. All right. Let me get that out of here, and let's talk to Tony, who's here in Little Rock. Tony, good afternoon. All right. Tony's not there. Are you still there, Rick? All right. What have I done here now?
Always looking for the next great player, right? Who's going to be the next? Who's next? Who's next? Who's the next LeBron James? And isn't it interesting that right now there are these guys coming into Major League Baseball? Ellie De La Cruz is absolutely amazing. In the draft, the first two picks were from LSU. There are some people thinking the LSU pitcher who's pitched first was the best pitcher ever available in the draft. I don't know if that's true or not. We'll see. And then their center fielder goes second, and he's a spectacular player, and people think he's almost ready for the major leagues today. So you get this excitement. I look at the Baltimore Orioles, my favorite team. They've had the number one farm system for the last couple of years. Now those guys are up and playing. And look at what they're doing. Suddenly they're 2 games out of first place at the All-Star break. They haven't been that close in a long, long time. But you get these exciting young players. And I think the same thing in the NBA when you look at the way people feel about Victor Wembanyama. Okay, so he goes out. He's only played 2 summer league games, but in his second one, he gets 27 points and 12 rebounds. And there are people thinking this guy is the best prospect since LeBron James. So sports, that's the great thing about sports, is we can talk about, there was Babe Ruth and all those guys in the 20s and the 30s, and then then there was DiMaggio, and then in the 50s there was Mays, Mantle, Aaron, Clemente, and all those guys, and in the 60s, and we can talk about the Derek Jeter group, and there's always somebody new. Same thing in basketball. I finished this book called Tall Men, Short Shorts. It's a great book. It's about the 69 playoffs, NBA Finals, Celtics and the Lakers. But you're looking at those teams, and the Celtics are Bill Russell and Sam Jones and John Havlicek, and the Lakers are Wilt and Elgin Baylor and Jerry West. Well, they passed the mantle to Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. They've passed the mantle along to, next is Michael Jordan and his teams. Then it's LeBron James.
All right, Rick.
Maybe
Rick,
guy's the next one.
Rick, I messed up. I brought a caller in while you're talking, and you're all on the same line. So,
Okay.
Doug in North Little Rock, go ahead, please.
Hi, Doug.
Yeah, hey, I just had a quick question. How does LSU get to keep their guys? Do they match, some of this MLB money with NIL money? How do they keep such quality players? Because I know a lot of those guys get drafted pretty high. How do teams like that keep their guys? We seem to lose them all the time to draft for $700,000 or something. Is there some kind of money situation?
Yeah, possibly. LSU probably has more NIL money available for baseball than any program in the country. So that's a possibility. But you think about Steens, their pitcher who went number 1, and he transferred from Air Force. He only pitched 1 year at LSU. And so it's not like they had him for 3 years there and kept him away from Major League Baseball. And I guess coming out of high school, he must not have been drafted that high, especially going to Air Force Academy. So that's how they kept him. Their center fielder, I don't have no idea what his draft status was coming out of high school, but very good. But yes, they'll do, and Arkansas will too. As I just mentioned, anybody drafted from the 5th round on, Arkansas will fight to keep them. And I think LSU will do the same. But if LSU has a guy that's drafted in the 1st or 2nd round that's one of their high school prospects, they're likely to lose them as well.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Thanks for calling. But they do have, it's my understanding, probably more NIL money for baseball than any program in the country.
You can buy a good team. It used to be illegal.
Yeah, it used to be illegal, but it's not anymore, and we're seeing that we're seeing it in all sports too, which is really kind of sad.
I went out to ULR, UA Little Rock basketball practice today. Watched the guys. Joe Foley's girls were there, and I didn't recognize very many of his players. He lost a bunch. He's got a ton of new faces. Darrell Walker lost a bunch. He's got a lot of new faces, and so kind of intriguing. And I'm trying to figure out who's who. Went to the website thinking I was going to get a roster, and there were only a few players on there. As a matter of fact, I got a release as I was driving over here that Darrell had signed another player. Well, that player that player they announced was at practice. He was already practicing today.
Well, it's kind of like what we've done with Hoop Scoop. He's the guy that gives us all this information. And by the way, I can now connect, so I'm going to hang up the phone. I'm going to my headset.
All right. Okay. I'm going to cut you off there. All right. You're done there. And I've got you on where you normally are. All right. Are you there, Rick? No, you're not. All right. Let's talk to Steve in Magnolia. Steve, how are you this afternoon?
Hello, Ray.
Fire away, big guy.
First of all, I'd like to give a sympathy to the Derek Berry family because he lost his son yesterday morning in a car accident. And he was going to be a 12th grader this year, and he was going to be like the number 1 or 2 running back on the football team.
Hate to hear stories.
And
like
the thing about Dylan Cruz, his daddy is the reason he went to LSU for all 4 years. Because he told him, he said, son, if you can't make it in college, you can't make it in the major leagues.
All right, Rick says
But,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
But I admire his dad for doing that. Of course, it reminded me of Tracy Rocker, too. He was going to be a high number 1 draft choice, and he said, no, I'm going to Vanderbilt for 4 years, and he turned out pretty good.
Well, he ended up having surgery, and so.
Yeah. But I admire, kids and parents that do that. They're telling the major league agents that, hey, we want them to go to college for at least 3 years. But as fast as these kids are graduating, I mean, they have their undergrad degree in 2 years, and then they will start working on their master's.
Those students that hung around because of COVID, et cetera, and ended up getting an extra year, end up getting a master's degree. They're the smart ones.
Uh-huh. And another thing, too, I say these basketball players that are turned pro after 1 year, they should have to pay the school back that scholarship amount if they're not going to return to school to finish their degree, because that's doing the school an injustice.
Well, you're going to argue about a lot of things like that, Steve.
But anyway, that's all I have, Ray, and I'll talk to you later.
All right, appreciate it. All right, Rick says he's connected. I don't see Rick connected. You put him in a different spot. Okay, that'd been nice if somebody told me that.
There you go. Can you hear me?
Yeah. You're on what used to be Randy's spot, not your regular pot. So
okay. Can you hear me, Ray?
And when I say pot, I'm not talking about that stuff. I'm talking about what we call control on a control panel called the pot. Okay, I just want people to know that.
Okay. And by the way, for what Steve said at the end there is no way in this world any school is ever going to tell a 1 and done he has to pay for his scholarship. It's not going to happen. Because you want to keep getting those 5 stars. You want to keep getting the 1 and dones. And that's the thing you have to look at. Okay, so we all thought Walsh would be back next year. So Walsh has played 2 or 3 of these games in the summer league. He scored 18 points yesterday. He hit 7 out of 11 of his shots. He hit 4 out of 6 from 3-point range. He's hitting shots we didn't see him hit at Arkansas.
Yeah, I'm watching highlights of him on Instagram, and I'm like, where's this guy been?
Right. And so you'd have to say that if he makes it as a second-round draft pick with the Celtics, 5-star coming out of Arkansas. That's going to help you get more players like that.
Sure
And
it is.
unfortunately, basketball is becoming a lot like baseball. You got to redo your roster every year. It didn't used to be that way, but it is now. And so that just helps you get more good players.
The Must Bus is rolling everywhere. I saw him on Instagram in Las Vegas with Nick Smith, Black. Let's see, all of his former players in a picture.
Yeah.
He's all over the place. And
Yep.
hey, that picture right there on Instagram, and recruits are looking at that and going like, "Hey, I'm going to school there. I'm going to Arkansas."
That's exactly right. Okay. And we're hooked up and we're going and we're ready for your calls. 501-661-1037. We have open lines all the way till 6 o'clock. And even then, Pat Bradley will join us. You can call him then, too. We'll be back on Drive Time Sports.
Ray Tucker along with Rick Schaeffer. Rick will move that Saracen spot and catch it a little bit later on.
Okay. Well, then we'll return to Drive Time Sports. We're glad to have you back. Ray, I can tell you, and I was just talking to Gary Horn, craziest thing. For some reason, I cannot get the Comrex up. So you just keep telling us when we have calls.
All right, we'll do
Since
so. Right
you've
now,
got
we're
it right.
right now we're clear.
Okay, right now we're clear. So I think we told everybody about the baseball signees and where Arkansas is. And again, through the middle of the 8th round, 5 of their prospects had been drafted. 4 players off this year's team, all who expect to sign. Borford, of course, has no eligibility left. So that's a pretty good deal for him to get $304,000 if he gets that when he had no eligibility left. Okay, so Trey Biddy's not going to be with us this week, so I got this information so I could share this with you on the show today, because there's some guys that are supposed to sign their letters of intent soon that Arkansas is recruiting, and one of them was supposed to sign today. And again, I don't always get that information as quick as I would like. Maybe he didn't sign with Arkansas, because he's everywhere I've looked, I don't find him, and that's an offensive lineman named Fletcher Westfall out of Leesburg, Virginia. If anybody knows what happened to him, you can let us know. Brian Huff, linebacker out of Valley View, 6'3", 225, is supposed to sign Wednesday. Arkansas is in the hunt. Braylon Russell, the running back from Benton, that looks like Arkansas or Tennessee. Friday, he's supposed to sign at 6:30. Friday, Selman Bridges from Temple, Texas, defensive back, is going to sign, or commit. These are all commits. Ashton Hampton, Saturday, defensive back, Tallahassee, Florida. He's going to make his announcement. And on July 20th, it's going to be Kendall Jackson, defensive lineman from Gainesville, Florida, making his announcement.
All right, we got a caller. Woody from Gum Springs is on the line with us. Good afternoon, Woody.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Question I've got, and you may be too soon to answer it, but I know, I guess before the draft started, we had the #1 recruiting class in the country.
Yeah.
After all of this, what's happened to it now? And I'll hang up and listen to you.
Okay, thanks for calling. The thing is, they signed 21 players. 5 of them have been drafted. If Arkansas lost all 5 of them, then they're probably going to lose the first 4 at least. But if they lost all 5 of them, they still would be in the top 5. That's everybody's saying that they would still have one of the top 5 recruiting classes. Will they be #1? Probably not. The recruiting analyst said that if Arkansas only lost 2, if they only lost those first 2 that were picked, which were Aiden Miller and Kendall George, if they only lost those 2, or excuse me, the ones they thought would go first would be Aiden Miller and Walker Martin. And actually 2 players went between those 2, but they thought if they just lost Martin and Miller, Arkansas still would be the #1 recruiting class. But now with George and Zanatello going between Miller and Martin, then they're probably, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3, but they're still going to have a really good recruiting class. And they've got 7 transfer portal players coming in as well, none of whom expect to be drafted.
I've always said that one of the worst jobs in college coaching is being a baseball coach, because you spend your time, your money, your recruiting budget recruiting these guys, and all of a sudden draft day comes along and you lose a bunch. It makes it tough.
That's exactly right, and it's the hardest. It's the hardest of the of recruiting in college sports, because you don't know. Like college basketball, when you sign a guy, you know you get him for at least a year. In college baseball, you don't know if you get him on campus. So that's all you can say. Okay, I'm looking up Tyler Westfall. All it says is he still set a commute. So I have not seen that he signed. He was supposed to sign sometime today. Let's see. Well, Westfall. It looks like he signed with Florida. Okay, Westfall signed with Florida today. So there's the.
Is he the lineman or?
He's the offensive lineman. He's 6'8", 335 pounds. He's out of Leesburg, Virginia. Picked the Gators over Arkansas, Auburn, Clemson, and Georgia. So
And
there's that.
Florida's having a heck of a recruiting.
Florida's having a great recruiting
Mhm.
year. That is their 18th commitment. And says here's what Westfall said. For a long time, Arkansas was the leader, and I hadn't taken many visits to Florida, but when I got down there, I started feeling differently about them. I took my official visit to Florida, really enjoyed being around the players, around the coaches, loved the strength and conditioning staff. Everything was great to be around. So you know what?
Chomp,
Whoever you
chomp.
sign with, that's what you say.
Yeah.
And he committed to Florida, and that's what he said. Florida's recruiting class right now is ranked number 3 nationally. How about that? 18-player class.
You know, I've never met Billy Napier. I have a good friend who broadcasts Louisiana Raging Cajun games, football, baseball, basketball. He, does it all, and was always telling me what a great guy he was. And one of the stories that he told me was one year he got a big raise, and he took that raise and divided it up among all of his assistants. He's that kind of guy, so he'll do a good job at Florida, obviously.
Yeah, he will. You know, they had a so-so first year. We'll see. But he was left. It's amazing that he was left with so little talent at a school like Florida. So it's gonna take them a while to build back up. So Fletcher Westfall's off the boards. Next up for the Razorbacks in possibilities is Brian Huff. He's supposed to commit on Wednesday. Again, 6'3", 225 linebacker out of Valley View, Arkansas. Several schools have been after him. Let's hope that the Razorbacks get a good in-state player with him.
I wonder if there's a stat on everything. I wonder if there is such thing as a stat of a guy who signs with a school, and that's the last school that his last visit.
Could be. I know that Trey Biddy, who's on vacation this week, so he won't be with us all week. Trey Biddy thinks that the last visit there are 2 factors, the first offer and the last visit. Because sometimes the player feels like with the first offer, that is such a big deal when the first big school offers you a scholarship. And that means they care for you. And you know what happens sometimes as a school will offer you, and then somebody else, oh my gosh, Georgia offered him. Well, we need to offer him too. And the next thing you know, he's got 10 offers or 15 offers. And so that first one does mean something to him. But then when he starts his visits, and who the first offer is frequently is among his last 3 or 4 choices. But then when he makes that last visit, just like what we just said about him, he said Arkansas was the favorite all along, hadn't been to Florida much, goes down there, has a great time. Next thing you know, commits to Florida.
He's a big old boy. He better get ready to sweat a lot.
That's right. You know, but the thing there is, and Trey knows this better than I would, and that is, does that mean they stop recruiting him? Had enough difficulty today. Now my dogs are barking because somebody's coming in. But anyway, it's been one of those weird days, I can tell you. Randy, I'm sorry. I know usually when you take off, things work very well without you, but today it's been a little bit different. But anyway, what were we saying? That last visit can have an impact, and that's why they say first school that offers and the last school that you visit. And obviously it worked with him. So let's hope Arkansas gets the last visit on the rest of these guys. Although I think right now they're in a period where they can't visit, and yet they're all going to make these commitments. So those are the football recruits that we've talked about. One of the tonight's home run derby. Tomorrow night's the Major League Baseball All-Star game. Today they announced the starting pitchers. It's going to be Garrett Cole for the New York Yankees is going to pitch for the American League, who are injury riddled. Mike Trout won't play. Aaron Judge won't play. You look at their lineup. There are 5 Texas Rangers in the starting lineup. Now, that's not bad because they really have a good record, but you take Judge and Trout out of that lineup, and it's not quite as intimidating. The National League has a very good lineup. We can go through that in a little bit. But Zach Gallen, a pitcher for the Arizona Diamondbacks, who's been very good the last 2 years, is going to start the game for the National League. And you and I grew up in an era, Ray, where the National League totally dominated the All-Star game. Because the Yankees were in the American League, frequently the Yankees would still win the World Series, but the National League dominated the All-Star game. The National League was much quicker to integrate, particularly with large numbers. And so you saw, the American League had teams that weren't quite as fast in the All-Star game. And you're looking at the National League's got Aaron, Frank Robinson, Willie Mays. Obviously, it starts with Jackie Robinson, Roy Campanella, and they dominated for years and years. Well, now the American League has won every year since 2012. So they've won a bunch in a row, and we'll see what happens tomorrow night. But listen to this National League lineup. Ronald Acuna Jr. leading off for the Braves. Possibly the best player in baseball, although most people say Shohei Ohtani. But you could pick either of those two and say they are the best player right now. So he's leading off for them. Then you got Freddie Freeman's batting second, playing first base, Dodgers. Mookie Betts, really a great player for the Dodgers, batting third. J.D. Martinez, so 3 Dodgers in a row, second, third, and fourth. Then it's Nolan Arenado, who was struggling till about 3 weeks ago, and he is sizzling at the plate. Now, the Cardinals are still not very good, but he's sizzling at the plate. He's got his average up to about 285. He's hit plenty of home runs. He's their 5th hitter. The guy that's batting 6th is batting 383, Luis Ariz, and he's slumped to 383. He was right there at 400 for a while. He's the second baseman for the Marlins. Sean Murphy was probably the best player traded in the offseason. The A's traded him to the Braves. He's been their starting catcher, and he is having a fabulous year. And he's next in the batting order. And then Corbin Carroll, who's the Arizona Diamondbacks' really hot rookie, and they thought he might be out for a while, but his injury wasn't as bad as they thought, so he ought to be able to play. And then Orlando Arcia, who has had a great year at shortstop for the Braves. That's their lineup. And for the first time in years, it's a better lineup than the American League. So maybe they'll win one.
So the starting infield is all Atlanta Braves, right?
Yeah, well, no, Freddie Freeman used to be, but now he's a Los Angeles Dodger.
How did they let him get away?
Well, evidently that was his agent. Evidently his agent did that simply. And actually, the Braves don't have the starting. They have the starting catcher, center fielder, and shortstop.
I thought I'd read that somewhere. Obviously, I'm wrong.
No, because Ariz is the second baseman. He's with the Marlins, and Freddie Freeman's the first baseman, obviously with the Dodgers now, and Nolan Arenado is the third baseman with the Cardinals. So there's that.
Pardon the pun, but I was way off base.
That's right. Well, anyway, how do you let Freddie Freeman get away? Basically, he got the same money that the Braves would have paid him, but his agent evidently told the Braves I can't remember what it was, but like he was gone or no, that wasn't enough, and he never consulted Freddie Freeman, and so the Braves just backed off. And they went out and traded for Matt Olson, who's having a terrific year for them. He's leading the National League in home runs, I believe. So anyway. All right, there's the music. We're ready for your calls, 501-661-1037 when we return on Drive Time Sports. Welcome back to Drive Time Sports. And, one thing I can do comfortably every time, whether our Comrex is working or anything else, is talk about Tacos for Life. So I went to Tacos for Life today. They had their board down, so I know they're well over 30 million as far as meals served. In fact, there were well over 30,200,000 the last time I was in there. Just remember, every time you buy a meal at Tacos for Life, that means somebody who's food insufficient is going to get a meal. And they do it very well, and they do it all over the world. Can you imagine that? Over 30 million in a little less than 10 years. But you know what the other great thing is? You're going to love Tacos for Life. You're going to love what you get for Tacos for Life. Their menu is absolutely fabulous. Right now, the buffalo chicken tacos are right there and featured. You're going to love that. You're going to love the strawberry watermelon punch. They've got all kinds of good things. Check them out. You will love Tacos for Life. Welcome back to Drive Time Sports. Now, Bray, I have no idea how I did this, but I now have the board in front of me. So here I am. And when I see there was ringing, but we didn't get a call, but whenever we get a caller, I can now see it. How about
All right.
that?
I want to take a moment to do this very quickly.
Do it.
I lost my father Christmas Eve, 1970. He was 45 years old.
Ooh,
And
45.
since then, the Twin City Athletic Association, Helena, West Helena, has given the O.R. Tucker Sportsmanship Award. And I just got this on Facebook. Chase Copeland, a 12-year-old, is the winner of the O.R. Tucker Sportsmanship Award for this year. The award goes to a player who shows great sportsmanship to his team and other teams. Congratulations to Chase Copeland. And I think we have an affiliate, KFFA, over in Helen that carries our show. So anyway, anybody listening, tell Chase we gave him a shout out.
Very good. That's very nice. Love to hear those kind of things. Okay, we need to tell you again that we will not have Trey Biddy tonight. He is out of town and not with us. Again, I see the phone lines ringing, so I hope we get some more callers here, 501-661-1037. We can tell you that Media Days is coming up. I guess that's 2 weeks from today. Is it a week from today? It's a week from today. It's a week from today. Can you believe that? So Randy Rainwater has a couple obligations this week, and then he's free. So Sunday, he and David Basil are headed for Nashville. It's actually in Nashville this year for SEC Media Days. We can tell you that, so they'll be giving you all kinds of reports. Randy obviously will be on live on Drive Time Sports with reports. Monday, it's LSU, Missouri, and Texas A&M. Tuesday, it's Auburn, Georgia, Mississippi State, and Vanderbilt. Wednesday, Arkansas, Alabama, Florida, and Kentucky. And Thursday, Mississippi, South Carolina, and Tennessee. And after we talk to Clyde in Little Rock, we'll tell you who the Razorbacks are taking to Media Day. So, Clyde, thanks for calling. You're on the air.
Yeah, hi, guys. About Paul Skeens, he transferred from the Air Force Academy.
That's right.
Right?
Correct.
Yes.
Now do the service academies, do they allow, obviously they allow transfers.
Yes. You have to transfer before your third year, I believe. And here's the way, and the academies have just changed their policy, if I'm not mistaken. And it's effective starting next fall. And that is that once you enter the academy, if you don't leave by after your second year, then you cannot, if you're drafted for professional sports, you have to go fulfill your military obligation first. They had established a waiver because that window was so short that they were allowing some of their athletes who were drafted to go play professionally and then fulfill their military obligation, but they've done away with that. So maybe that's
that would have applied to that would have applied. Didn't mean to interrupt you there. That would apply to like Roger Staubach and
yes,
Pete Dawkins back in the day.
Yeah, those guys had to do military first, and so then they changed it. But now that they're changing it back, and I think it starts with either next fall or last fall. So Skeens, obviously, if he knew that was coming, maybe that's why he transferred.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes sense, I guess.
Who was the big lineman Dallas had?
Chad Henning.
Chad Henning. Okay.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of his name.
Right. He was Air Force Academy too.
Yeah, yes.
Yes, and he was able to play football and then do his military.
That's right. And Rick, I think you're an Orioles fan. I know. I think you got I think the O's made a good pickup in drafting Matt Horvat out of North Carolina. He
Well, I
had a
hope
great,
so.
he had a great 3-year career. He hit, I think he hit 47 home runs over his 3 years, including 24 last year.
Hmm. Well, of course, they got Tavian Josenberger too, so I'm glad for that. The their farm system over the last 3 years has been ranked the number 1 farm system in baseball, but they've finally fallen to number 2 because they've called so many guys up, and they've got 4 guys that were all ranked in the top, I think, 30 prospects are now up on the major league team, and of course it started with Adley Rutschman, their catcher, last year, and so. That's still a good farm system, and I hope they're replenishing it. And I hope that player from North Carolina is just as good as you said he is.
Where did the caller go?
I don't know. Disappeared. Okay. But I will tell you also that Heston Kjerstad has been called up from AA to AAA, and his numbers are really, really good right now. It would not be surprising to see him with the Orioles before this season is over. Let's go to Jake in Cabot. Hi, Jake. Thanks for calling. Except you're not in Cabot. You're all over America, right?
I'm up here in the Ozarks, Rick, somewhere between Poplar Bluff and Kansas. I'm sorry. I get confused myself sometimes. Poplar Bluff and St. Louis
Okay.
on 67.
Very good. Well, there's no baseball to see in St. Louis or in the All-Star break.
Yeah. Hey, man, this thing that Dela Cruz did over the weekend,
Yeah.
I'm not even – I love college baseball. I don't follow Major League Baseball. But to watch what he did, first of all, I didn't even see the still the second. I don't know how that happened because the video I saw, it picked it up when he was sitting on second.
Yeah.
He stole third.
Well, he stole second pretty easily. The throw was very late.
Yeah. So was it like a couple pitches later when he stole third?
Yeah. Okay. So he steals second on the
Okay.
first pitch after he gets on. He steals second. Then the pitcher throws a pitch. He's still there. Then on the next pitch, which would be the third pitch since he reached base, he steals third, and then he steals home without a pitch being thrown.
Yeah. You just got to admit, I mean, at any level, that is pretty phenomenal.
It's astonishing.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, yeah, it's the guy that guy's got to have, like, dare I say it, Dion-like speed. Really? I mean,
Yeah.
to be able to do that, like, and his fast twitch reflexes and stuff are for him to notice that, and the pitcher wasn't looking, and to take off and to have the confidence to do that for the home plate skill, it's unreal, man.
Great
You know, like,
instincts.
how often does that happen?
Hardly ever.
I
That's why
yeah,
people
like,
were
how
raving
often
about
does
it.
someone actually steal home? Is it maybe, can we say once a year? Is that
Well,
even
yeah.
even if that?
Yeah, even the best base stealers rarely steal home. And usually when you see a guy steal home, it's on the back end of a double steal. Guy stealing second base,
Right.
throw goes through, and you
Yes,
steal
sir.
home. But that's a straight steal without even a pitch being thrown. That is very rare.
Yeah. Well,
Okay,
hey,
Jake,
thanks, man.
music's
Love you guys.
playing.
Love the show. Keep it going,
Okay.
Rick.
Enjoy your drive. Thanks for calling, and we'll join you in a few minutes on Drive Time Sports. Everything working well right now. Ray Tucker's in Central Arkansas. I'm Rick Schaeffer. Randy Rainwater's out today. He will be back tomorrow. We'll continue talking about the Major League Draft. A couple more Razorback prospects have now been drafted. We'll tell you about those after we talk to David and Benton. Hi, David. Thanks for calling.
Hey, how we doing, Rick and Ray? How you guys doing today?
Terrific.
How about you, David?
Doing great. I'm just wondering where all these phone calls are from the folks that was talking about Jordan Walsh needs to come back. He's not ready.
I'm guilty. I'm guilty.
Leading up to the draft, that's all I heard. I mean, I was bombarded with it daily. I actually called in when the shooter was there, and the shooter agreed with me. I said, David, Walsh might wind up being better than all of them because he has the NBA body already. His shooting form is great. He just was missing shots. He came out on fire. And I understand you can't just put all the stock into two summer league games. I get that. But did you guys see him? The announcers, they couldn't stop gushing over Jordan Walsh. And I'm going to toot my own horn. I called in numerous times because I was hearing all this. Jordan Walsh needs to come back. Jordan Walsh needs to come back. And Rick, I heard you say today about these baseball players who's getting $1 million signing bonus. Yeah. But nobody said Jordan Walsh, if he's going to get $1 million signing bonus, he has to take it. Everybody was, he needs to come back. Well, I think he got a 4-year contract for like $7 million. Which, if I'm not, Albert Einstein, because I know that average is over $1 million a year, which is what Rick, you said. If these baseball players
no
get
doubt
$1
about
million
it. Oh, he has to.
I
totally agree. I guess, David, as we think about Walsh, in the game yesterday, he had his first 4 3-point shots. Did we ever see him do that at Arkansas? No,
we didn't. But if you remember, Rick, when the shooter was over here, I said his form is perfect. Yeah, he's just not hitting them right now.
Right, that's right. So evidently, he's gone to a different level. He's with the Boston Celtics. He's doing great in the summer league. Hey, look, I hope he does great. But you are exactly right. I would say the same thing to a basketball player. You say to a baseball, if you get $1 million a year or more, or even a bonus, you got to go. You have to. And so, what we didn't know. Because when, Randy reads those mock drafts, I don't really pay as much attention to him as he does, but Walsh wasn't showing up at all on the mock drafts. And the next thing you know, he's the 38th guy picked and gets a good contract deal with the Boston Celtics. And so, there is no doubt that's turned out well for him. And really, when you look at, again, this is right out of college. We don't know how it's going to turn out, but, he looks a lot better than Nick Smith Jr. does. Nick is.
But I'm not going to put him up and put him down. I'm not going to do it.
No, I'm not doing that. But he's not. He's a guy that everybody says can shoot, and he hadn't had a game yet where he hit half his shots. That doesn't mean he won't because he's rusty. He didn't get to play that much, and maybe he turns out to be a superstar. But Walsh looks like the steal of the draft the way he's playing right now.
And that was a statement I made when I called her and I said there are going to be a lot of GMs who are going to regret not taking Jordan Walsh.
The problem was Arkansas wasn't paying him enough money.
Hey, you said it, my brother. You said, ante up.
Then I'll give you $2 million.
I appreciate
you're right, David. Great job.
Great show.
Great
Thank
job,
you,
David. You got it.
Well, the number one pick in the draft went 2 of 13 in his first pro game.
Yeah, then scored 27.
And comes back and scores 27, gets double-digit rebounds. I mean, it was jacking him up from 3-point land like wildfire.
And they are going to pull him from the summer league. Isn't that interesting?
They're pulling him from the summer league?
They're pulling him from the summer league. He scored 27 points in his second game. That's it for him. They're going to put together a program for him for the next couple months that will not involve competition. So I hope everybody enjoyed watching him yesterday because that's it. That's it for him in the summer league. So, hey, and look, how do we know? Jordan Walsh signs with the Razorbacks. He's a 5-star. We're giddy. It's wonderful. It's great to have him. Walsh did not have near the reputation Nick Smith Jr. did. Again, we hope Nick Smith Jr. does very, very well. Nick Smith Jr. gets drafted way later than anybody anticipated. But let's don't forget Anthony Black either. Yesterday, he scored 17 points. And Anthony Black hadn't exactly been a knockdown shooter. He's been okay. He was 7 out of 10. He only took 2 3-point shots. He hit it. He also had 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and 3 steals in 27 minutes and 40 seconds. Now, the downside is, as we saw at Arkansas at times, he did have 7 turnovers in the game, but he scored a bunch of points. And the thing we see with Black, even for the Razorbacks, he was filling a lot of columns on that box score. And he's doing that again in these early games. Ricky Council, you just have to say, wow, did the 76ers get a good deal with him? 14 points, 8 rebounds. We were asking, I can't remember if I was asking Bart or Kevin about this 2-way contract deal. And when we researched that and they were explaining it to us, it was like if you sign a 2-way contract, it means that when you're in the G League, they pay you your G League salary. When you're in the NBA, they pay you your NBA salary, which the minimum is well over $800,000. And so when you're with the NBA, you get your NBA salary, which I'm sure is the minimum. But according to the rules, you can play no more than 50 games with your NBA team. Now, we assume that's for those who are placed on both of those before the season starts. But let's say Ricky Council makes the team. Let's say he's one of the 12, or I don't know how many guys they have. They have 18 when they count their practice squad. But let's say he makes the actual team, the 12 guys. Then he gets the NBA salary. So I don't know how loaded the 76ers are, but he's sure looking good in the summer league, Ricky Council.
He's a heck of a talent, no doubt about that. He's very explosive. I've seen highlights him doing the same thing in the summer league games he did at Arkansas, exciting the crowd with his dunks. Just explodes.
Absolutely. And then Jalen Williams, I don't get the deal with him. Maybe he signed a 2-way, but he was with Oklahoma City all last year. But he's playing in the summer league, even though it's his second year in the NBA. And yesterday he had 9 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, and a block shot in a game that Oklahoma City won. So Jalen's doing well in the summer league, and I'm sure he doesn't mind playing. So those guys are all doing pretty darn well. Nick Smith Jr. didn't play yesterday, I don't believe. Didn't see any numbers from him. Okay, we were talking about SEC Media Days. We'll go through it again. Next Monday, and Randy will be there. David Basil will be there for the buzz. Trey Shep usually goes, and so I'm assuming he'll be there too, getting interviews. But I just know David and Randy are going to go together. So LSU, Missouri, and Texas A&M on Monday. We're going to learn about those teams. Tuesday, Auburn, Georgia, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt. Wednesday, Arkansas gets the same day as Nick Saban in Alabama, plus Florida and Kentucky. Thursday, Mississippi, South Carolina, Tennessee. So you think about with 14 teams, 2 days with 3 teams, 2 days with 4 teams. Next year it'll be 4 days with all of them with 4 teams when Texas and Oklahoma join. Okay, so we've been asking all along, who's going to go for the University of Arkansas? Well, here's who's going for the University of Arkansas. They did send their 2 offensive stars. Obviously, Sam Pittman will be there. KJ Jefferson, the quarterback, will be there for the second year in a row. That's great spokesperson for the Razorbacks. He also is their maybe rated. He's rated at least the number one or 2 quarterback in the SEC. Rocket Sanders, Arkansas's outstanding running back, who rushed for well over 1,000 yards last year. Also another good spokesperson for the Razorbacks. Really a terrific player. He will be there. And then, Trey Biddy speculated those 2, and then it's like, well, who's going to be on defense? Well, it's going to be Landon Jackson, Arkansas's defensive end, who had such a spectacular spring, making all those big plays. So Landon Jackson will also be going to SEC Media Days for the University of Arkansas.
I hope Sam Pittman speaks before Nick Saban.
And why is that?
Because you know what happens after Saban speaks?
They all follow him?
Yeah, that was in Birmingham. It may be different in Nashville. I don't know. Yeah, but people, after Saban speaks, they just get up and they're done.
You mean that's it? That's all they come to media days for is Alabama?
Well, I've seen it on the SEC Network. It's a big circus when Saban comes in.
Yeah.
That may be different in Nashville. I don't know.
How much, what kind of surrounding groupies does Kirby Smart have? I mean, it's one thing to say, okay, Nick Saban, it's Alabama. And yes, he's won 6 national championships at Alabama, 7 overall. But Kirby Smart's teams have won the last 2. Wouldn't you think there'd be those that are pretty interested in hearing what he has to say?
I would think so. I just got a text, and I'm told, my friend Earl says that the Oklahoma City Thunder require their players to play for 2 years in the summer league.
Really? Wow.
Not sure
That's
we got that, but Earl's on top of his game as usual.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Earl. And we'll tell you that Jalen Williams did the same thing for Oklahoma City that he did for the Razorbacks. And that is last year, I don't know how many minutes per game he played, but he led the NBA in charges taken. Number 1, guy was a rookie. That's what he does really well. He led the NBA in taking charges. Now they're going to make it tougher this year because it's almost like you have to be planted longer, and there's a smaller window where you can be planted when the offensive guy comes in there. So the advantage is definitely to the offensive player driving to the basket rather than the guy who sets up for the charge. Now that's in the NBA.
Yeah, his agent needs to get him a deal with a credit card company.
With a credit card company?
Since he takes all those charges.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
MasterCard.
Right.
Here we go.
And particularly if you can get some interest, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That'd be a good deal.
We're not going to buzz ourselves.
No, we won't buzz ourselves. Okay. I did tell, I teased this at the first of the hour, and we had a caller, so I put it off. Okay. So we had already told you that 5 Razorback prospects had been drafted in the first 5 rounds. The 5th one was Dylan Quastead, right-handed pitcher by the Twins. He's in round 5, slot value $412,000 and $60,000. So anyway, he was number 5, and then obviously some Razorback players who had no eligibility left or who we knew would be gone have been drafted. They are now late in round 9. They might even be in round 10. But here are 3 more Razorbacks, or those affecting the Razorbacks. Round 8, pick 234. The Los Angeles Angels have taken Barrett Kent. He's an Arkansas signee. Projected slot value, $206,000. You just have to again say, wow, 8th round, $206,000. Are you going to bypass college for $206,000? Knowing, again, now you're in a tax bracket where you're going to pay at least 20% of that. So that's $40,000. So that leaves you $160,000. Now, Ray, if anybody came up to us and said, we'll give you $160,000 for the next year, no matter what it was for, we would do it. But for a guy coming out of high school who's a prime pitcher, he's got to be thinking, okay, $206,000, man, that bonus money in a year, that's going to be gone. And if I'm not in the major leagues beyond then, it's going to be a tight fit. If I go to the University of Arkansas, I might get drafted higher and next time and be worth a whole lot more. And the other thing is, as we were said in the early part of the program, when I was talking to Barry Lenny Sr. all those years ago, when you're playing in the minor leagues, you're riding buses. Your per diem is not that great. Your salary is better than it has been, but it's still not very good. And that's it. And you're only paid over about 4 months or 5 months. So you might have to get a summer job or a winter job to make up some income. So it's not an easy deal in the minor leagues. There's obviously some perks, but it's not often easy. Whereas you go to college, you go to an SEC school, you're going to fly to every road trip unless it's close. You're going to stay in nice hotels. You're going to eat great. You're going to have the best fitness people, and you're going to have great coaches. So I'm not sure $206,000 is worth passing up college. And if $206,000 isn't worth it, $196,000 isn't worth it either, because pick number 242, picked just 8 after Barrett Kent, round 8, Milwaukee Brewers select Craig Yoho. And Craig Yoho is a graduate transfer coming in from the University of Indiana. Now, so it could be worth it for him. because he's got 1 year of eligibility left. And so at any rate, you don't know what he's going to do. Round 8 slot is 196,000. Will that be worth it for him to sign? Don't know. We'll figure that out. Round 9, a current Razorback who's out of eligibility, Jared Wagner, who absolutely did a magnificent job on Drive Time Sports when he was on. Really a class interview, class guy, and we wish him the absolute best. He's drafted in the 9th round by the New York Yankees. That ought to make Randy Rainwater really happy. Jared Wagner, picked by the Yankees, 282nd player picked. Projected slot value for that pick is $173,000. Now, here's the problem. Jared Wagner has 0 bargaining power. And that's one of those things where the Yankees could say, okay, we'll give you $100,000 and use that other 73 for somebody else. That definitely could happen to him because he has no bargaining power. He's finished his collegiate career. There's absolutely nothing else he can do. So, that's where that is. Now, Michael Oggins, who's our great listener and former Razorback, former minor league standout for many years, says the buses are charter buses. Well, isn't that nice?
Well, I will say this. The Arkansas Travelers travel on air coach lines, and I've got a good friend, Jay Jameson, who drives them. I have traveled a zillion miles on air coach lines over the last 24 years, and the buses are nice.
Okay.
Yeah. And
that's nice.
And so
but they take a while to get there. And he reminded me that with the new collective bargaining agreement, the first one they've ever had with the minor leagues, says they get paid all year round. I wasn't sure about that, but their salaries have increased some. But if you're in Class A, you're still only going to make about $30,000.
And don't they help them with housing now?
They help them with housing. Yeah, they put 12 in every apartment. So no, I'm teasing. They did it first. A lot of teams did that. They crammed apartments and crammed houses with a bunch of guys, and players were upset about that. But I think they have corrected that by now. Yeah. So,
I mean, all we have to go by is the movie Bull Durham,
Well, it's definitely better than it was then. Definitely better.
That's if you're not seeing that movie now, it's probably R-rated. I'm sure it is.
It is. Yeah. But if you haven't seen it, you do not have MLB Network, because here's what MLB Network does. And I love MLB Network and I watch it all the time. During baseball season, it's great. It's nonstop highlights. It's nonstop cut-ins. During the daytime, they have baseball talk. It's superb. Their people are just absolutely outstanding. But on Sunday night, once everything's over with, on Sunday night, they're going to show a baseball movie. Well, they've only got about 8 or 10 of them, and they just keep showing them over and over and over and over. And in the wintertime, when they have no baseball to show, they'll show some old games. But then for the most part, they're showing, again, those same baseball movies over and over and over. I'll bet Bull Durham was on at least 20 times during the off season last year. And what they'll do is they'll save a couple of them that they show frequently one year, and the next year they won't show them very much. Then the next year they bring them back and they're kind of fresh again. Like this year, Little Big League, which is about the guy whose grandfather owned the Twins, and his grandfather dies, leaves him with the Twins, and he becomes the manager when he's 10 years old. It's a really good movie. It has Ken Griffey Jr., has a lot of major leaguers in it. Really a good movie. But they hadn't shown that for a couple of years, and then they showed it a lot this year. So you can see those movies, and then they also show Ken Burns' baseball documentary, and they'll show it over and over and over. And yeah, it's really, really good. But if you miss it one time, you can see it the next, because they keep showing it over and over again. So anyway, they do that. But Mike, you're very nice to suggest that the buses are nice, and they are, but they are still long rides. They are not short plane trips. And I'm sure the per diem has improved some, but it's not absolutely magnificent. And they may pay you year round, but you better save some of your bonus money, because your salary money doesn't go very far.
So how many people travel with a minor league baseball team, you think?
I'm wondering their rosters. I don't know if they have full 25-man rosters or 24, somewhere in that range. So you got the players. Obviously, they have a smaller staff. They have the manager, who usually is also the third base coach. You have a first base coach, pitching coach, hitting coach. I think that's about the extent of it. They'll usually have maybe just 4 on their coaching staff. They'll have a trainer and a strength guy. So, I don't know if they travel with somebody that books the rooms and does all that, or if the trainer or strength guy do that. So you're talking about 6 or 7 guys there, say 24, 25 players, and your broadcaster, he'll travel as well. So you're probably talking about 38, 39 guys.
Oh, my. That's a lot of guys. And I was comparing that to traveling with the Little Rock basketball team. And so our group's probably 23, 24 when all is said and done. And so a lot of our guys stretch out all the way across the bus and seats on one side to the other side. You can't do that with 38 people on there. I got news for you.
No. You're doubling up in most seats. Okay, Ray Tucker, Rick Schaeffer. We'll talk about anything you want to when we return on Drive Time Sports.
Randy Rainwater not with us today. Double R took a day off. Take a minute to talk about BetSaracen.com, the app. And one of the things I really like about it, I've got all the apps on my phone. It's gold and black, and it jumps out like a sore thumb. So it's very easy to find. You still have time to jump in there and place your wagers as far as a Major League Home Run Derby is concerned. I'm sitting here looking at the app. Home Run Derby 2023 round one matchup: Lewis Robert Jr. and Adley Rushman. Home Run Derby 23 round one: Pete Alonso, Julio Rodriguez. You get the general idea. There are all kinds of prop bets you can bet here, and I think maybe this night it may be one of the most fun nights of the summer with the Home Run Derby. That's one of my favorite events, and I'm really mad at myself because I didn't tape it, knowing that I'm not going to be there to watch the start of it. Because we got our outdoor show a little bit later on tonight. But if you get a chance, download the app. It is a lot of fun. There are all kinds of prop bets on here, in-game bets, specials. You get the general idea. If you've not downloaded the app, you need to do so. You don't have to drive to Pine Bluff to do it. You can do it right on your phone. Just go to the App Store and type in Saracen, BetSaracen.com, and download the app. So a lot of fun. If you folks get a chance, take part in the Home Run Derby tonight. Rick?
Well, very good. And you can watch the Home Run Derby. It actually starts at 7 o'clock. All this stuff's in Seattle. And so everything's West Coast time. So it's going to be interesting tomorrow night. The game will start after they have all the introductions or something. It'll probably start around 7:15, 7:20. But that's 5:20 Pacific time, which means if the roof is open, which it usually is where the Mariners play, then the sun could definitely be a factor at the All-Star game. So Home Run Derby. Do you watch that?
I like watching it, but I forgot to tape it. I'm gonna be tied up when it starts.
Well, but, they'll still be going long after you get off the air. But I got to say, I sometimes watch a little bit of it, but I don't know that I'm all that fascinated by it. I mean, it's home run, or not hit a home run. We all go back to those days when we were little kids and watching Home Run Derby with Mickey Mantle and Ernie Banks and Henry Aaron and Willie Mays, and they'd come over and talk to the guy in between. And that was pretty cool stuff, and you can still see some of that on YouTube. But now, I mean, it's just home run after home run after home run. And now I tell you who'd be exciting for is if you're there and you're in the outfield seats, because you'd be chasing balls all evening. See if you can get some home run balls off these guys. Pete Alonso's won it twice. He's probably the favorite. But it's a good I'd say it's a good group this year.
I will head up to a place up in the Heights called Prospect after I get off the show tonight. They got a lot of big screens at sports bar.
Yeah.
And take it in tonight. I will do that.
Well, good for you.
Who's your favorite? You got somebody?
Well, I like Adley Rushman because he's an Oriole, but
he's only hit 12 home runs or something like that.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I don't know how he got in. Maybe because he's a young guy and they want to get some young blood in there. But with some guys, it doesn't bother him in the least. Some guys, like Alonso, it's never bothered. Some guys, it messes up their swing a little bit. You're up there swinging for home run after home run because good hitters don't go to the plate looking to hit home runs. I mean, we got the launch angle now, and, when you're swinging your bat, you're looking at your launch angle and you're trying to get the ball up and all those kind of things. But if you go up there and say, I'm going to hit a home run this time, you're going to be wrong 95 times out of 100. Even if you're a power guy, if that's what you're looking to do, because you got to get a ball in a specific place, you got to get the right connection to it. It's very hard to do. So, but what they're doing is, obviously this is batting practice type pitching to them, which makes it easier to hit the ball out of the ballpark. And so that's what you're gunning for is home runs. And, we'll see guys hit in a particular round. We'll see them hit anywhere from 25 to 35 home runs. One guy. That's a lot. So think about that. If you hit 35 home runs in a round, then you've hit more home runs than anybody's hit in the first half of the season. That's a lot of home runs.
Who does Arkansas open the football season with this year?
Well, that was a big switch. Western, and that's okay.
Western Carolina.
Western Carolina, and the game's in Little Rock, and it's been a while since Arkansas opened in Little Rock.
Well, the only reason I ask, I still have the Saracen app pulled up, and there's already a point spread out there.
I'll bet Arkansas is favored
by 34.5. And
34.5.
Oklahoma's favored by 33.5 over Arkansas State. Oh well. Anyway, I didn't expect that to be up there that early.
I was trying to look up some information on Western Carolina in I've got Athlon's College Sports Magazine, and I had to look on the internet to see they're in the Southern League. Well, the Southern League didn't make Athlon's College Football Magazine. It says previews of all 131 FBS teams, so I guess they must be a division down. The Southern League must be down, not an FBS team. And that's which you're allowed to play one of those, and it does count on your record, which is nice. So that's who Arkansas opens with.
I was watching a thing on Instagram with Josh Pate. Are you familiar with him?
Yeah.
Can that guy talk? Or
sports guy?
Can he talk or talk? I mean, he can go for an hour.
So what'd you learn?
He played a clip with Nick Saban. I think it was from last year when Saban went off talking about, hey, let's just play 9 SEC games and let's do away with these Sisters of the Poor, because people want to come. People leave the game when you're up 40 at the half. People start leaving the games. Why don't we play? Everybody play schools that are a good foe, and make for good TV and good for the fans.
Yeah, he said that, and then when he found out who their permanent rivals would be if they played 9, he wasn't very happy.
He wasn't very happy about it.
No, and which is hilarious because why should he worry about who they're playing? They win all the time anyway. So you shouldn't worry too much about that.
He does a lot of what if stuff, but I've never seen anybody can talk like he does, other than Stephen A. But Stephen A. doesn't sit there and do 30 minutes by himself. This cat does.
Yeah. No.
I think there's something on Instagram where you can go. Not Instagram. No,
he's on YouTube.
YouTube. I said Instagram.
Yeah, he's on YouTube.
On YouTube. I think I saw one the other day. I didn't take time to watch it. Talking about Arkansas's upcoming season. I need to go back and find that.
Well, he will tell you probably the thing that we've said 930 times already. This is the worst schedule they've ever been handed for the most part. Now, if they get through the rough part, it could be a great year. But you think about, okay, so Western Carolina's at Little Rock. Arkansas should win. Then they play Kent State at Fayetteville. Arkansas should win. They play BYU at Fayetteville. Arkansas won at Provo last year. BYU won 8 games last year. They are certainly not chopped liver. They're in the Big 12 now for the first time. So it's an intersectional game between 2 Power 5 conferences. When BYU was scheduled, they weren't in a conference. Now they're in the Big 12. BYU was 8-5, but Arkansas is playing at home, and we think if everything's equal, Arkansas should win. But then the next 4 games, and Trey Biddy has outlined this over and over again, at LSU won 10 games last year. Texas A&M at Arlington, that's a home game for the Razorbacks, but it's outside the state of Arkansas. Then they play at Ole Miss. Ole Miss won 8 games last year. Then at Alabama. Alabama won 11 games last year. And we've said frequently on this program, it's the first time in school history, we'll repeat that over and over again before the season starts, that Arkansas's first 4 conference games, none of them are in the state of Arkansas. That's never happened before. And that's the schedule they've been given. Now, we've said frequently, if somehow they could split those games, and it won't be easy, but if they could, and they come out of that stretch at Alabama, say 5-2, then you got a great chance to win 8 or 9 games, because after that, the toughest game's at Florida, and we don't know how good Florida is going to be. Got Mississippi State at home. Now, they did win 9 games last year. They're under a new coaching regime. At Florida, Florida won 6 games last year, lost their bowl game. Arkansas has never won at Gainesville. They should have won when Bobby Petrino was here, but didn't because of officiating. But they play at Florida on November 4th. Then they play Auburn at home. They finally got to Auburn last year, beat them bad. Auburn won 5 games last year. Let's hope Arkansas can beat them again. You get Florida International. They won 4 games last year. Arkansas should win. Then they play Missouri at home. If it was at Columbia, you would be cringing by the fact that Arkansas has got to go there again, and the weather's always terrible, and Missouri always wins. This time the game's at Fayetteville. Arkansas did win against Missouri the last time the game was at Fayetteville. So, again, if somehow Arkansas gets through that 4-game stretch with, say, 2 wins, they could win 9 games this year. They could. I'm not saying they will, but they could. And if they do, and you go to a bowl game with a chance to win 10, well, Arkansas hadn't won 10 games in a season since Bobby Petrino was here as the coach. Now, the A&M game, we look at that, and I think of that as being one of the games they could win. And yet you mentioned Petrino, he's their offensive coordinator. And the thing we do not know, and we can talk about this till we're blue in the face, and we're not going to know it till the season starts, is how's that going to work with Jimbo Fisher being the guy that's always called their plays, and now he's bringing in Bobby Petrino to do that. And Petrino's he is a absolutely great play caller. Does A&M have the personnel to work well with what Petrino does? How will that mix with Jimbo Fisher being the offensive type guy since he's been at A&M and went to Florida State? And so that wonderful word chemistry, and we're not talking about the classroom, that comes into play.
Bobby Petrino is his own guy, has been his own guy. I mean, he's not been an assistant coach in how long?
It's been a long time.
He was head coach of the Falcons, then came to Arkansas, Missouri State, was he in Western Kentucky?
Yeah. Louisville. He was at Louisville before he was with the Falcons.
And he's always been the head coach. And so this is totally different for him. And Bobby has been said he's hard to work around sometimes. And if Jimbo Fisher starts trying to stick his finger in the pie, that's not going to go over very well. I can tell you that.
No, but he is the head coach.
I
know
that.
He has the right to stick his finger in the pie.
I know that.
We'll see what happens. Okay, you can call us on any sports subject. We've got one more segment before we come back at 6 o'clock with Pat Bradley. Feel free to call us, 501-661-1037, when we return on Drive Time Sports. Well, Randy's out today. Welcome back to Drive Time Sports. We're going to recount again. You know, it's interesting. If you watch the MLB Network, they're making a big deal out of the MLB draft. It's the draft probably the least watched, because they draft so many rounds. They're doing 20 rounds now, which is down considerably from the past. They'll be through round 10 today. They'll start with round 11. They'll do 11 through 20 tomorrow, so they'll move much faster than they're moving right now. But we'll tell you again, here's where Arkansas's recruits stand. Aiden Miller, first-round pick of the Philadelphia Phillies. The competitive balance, round A. Kendall George, Los Angeles Dodgers. George is an outfielder. Nazon Zanatello. Again, Arkansas never expected him to be picked this high. Thought he might be a third or fourth rounder. Very fast player. He's a shortstop. 50 pick by the Boston Red Sox. 52 pick by the Giants is Walker Martin, another shortstop. So the Razorbacks are likely to lose all four of them. Jackson Wiggins, current player, picked by the Cubs. Hunter Holland by the Reds. Tavian Josenberger by the Orioles. Then in round 5 is the next prospect, and we just don't know. I still think there's a chance Arkansas could keep him. We just don't know. Maybe I'm being over-optimistic. Dylan Quaystad, pitcher, drafted by the Twins. His slot's $412,000. Might have a chance to get him. Jace Borfin is drafted by the Blue Jays. He has no options, so he'll, of course, sign. Barrett Kent, the Arkansas signee pitcher, drafted in the 8th round by the Angels. I think there's a chance to keep him. There's a chance to keep Craig Yoho, although Yoho is not coming out of high school. He is a graduate transfer from the University of Indiana, and so so he's pitched at least 3 years in college baseball, so you might lose him. And then Jared Wagner, who used to be on every Monday night during the baseball season on Drive Time Sports, drafted in the 9th round by the Yankees. Obviously, he has no college eligibility, so he's going to sign. The slot there is $173,000, but they can actually sign him for whatever they want because he has absolutely no leverage. And that's, Ray, why a lot of these guys, that's why their third year in college is so critical, because if they don't get drafted where they want, if they don't get offered what they want, they can come back to college for another year. So they've got leverage when they're dealing with the Major League Baseball team. But once you finish your senior year, like Wagner, hey, whatever they're going to offer you, that's what you're going to get. You're going to go. You don't have any choice.
When he was on with us, he was like talking to a coach.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy knows the game, and I wish him. I hope he does well. I really do. You know, he broke a hand. What was it? Broke a hand or a finger?
Yeah. Bone in his hand.
Yeah. And wasn't quite the same after that. I mean, when you sit out, then that happens to you. But anyway, nice young man. And he went to who got him?
He went to the Yankees.
I
know that Randy Rainwater hopes he'll be absolutely spectacular. But anyway, Yeah, classy guy. What's really tough is he and Josenberger were both having great years. Both got hurt, and when they came back, they weren't the same. And so you think about Arkansas this year in the NCAA baseball tournament, and they didn't survive their own regional. TCU came up here and just really was great. TCU won the regional. TCU ends up winning a super regional and went to Omaha. They didn't win there, but they were really had a good team. I think they won one game up in Omaha, but they bounced the Razorbacks pretty good. But Arkansas was, after those two guys got hurt, they were never the same, and they did share the SEC championship, regular season championship, which I think was only the fourth time they've done that since they've been in the SEC, but they were staggering at the end. They tied with Florida. Florida was definitely the better team at the end of the year. Arkansas was the better team in the middle of the year, but Florida was the better team at the end of the year, and they got to Omaha. Arkansas didn't. So I know there are those that are disappointed, but I got to tell you, when two or three of your guys, and of course they lost a couple other starters that were out for the year. Losing Brady Slavens certainly hurt them, or not Slavens, the
second baseman.
Yeah, second baseman. It's Peyton Stovall, who will be back next year, but losing him really hurt. There's a guy that turned down a lot of money to come to the University of Arkansas. Now there's a perfect example. There's a perfect example of a guy that could have made, I don't know if he could have made $1 million. He could have made several $100,000 coming out of high school, and he didn't. Came back. If he comes back and has a really good junior year, then he'll do really well.
Big news out of the Big Ten. Northwestern coach Pat Fitzgerald has been fired.
Ooh, that just happened.
Yes.
Wow. That just happened because I was reading about him earlier today. Okay, so they're looking into hazing of some of their football players, and the initial investigation, they said, did not show that the coaches knew anything about it. But then I guess a player has come forward and gave the information to the athletic director and to the president of the school that indicated those coaches did know it was going on. Is that the story?
I just saw the flash up on ESPN.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about something that I don't know the details on. So
yeah, the guy I believe is the winningest coach in Northwestern history.
Yeah. They went 1-10 last year too.
Pardon me?
Didn't they go 1-10 last year too?
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Gosh, really? I didn't know they were that bad. But I guess you can be the winningest coach and still have a bad year, can't you?
And he played there.
Yeah, played there. Legendary guy there. Wow. Well, that has just hit then.
Yeah. Originally, they suspended him for 2 weeks without pay.
Right. Mm-hmm. Wow. And there again, you get into these things where if you can show cause, then you don't have to pay them anything. And obviously, they're going to say they can show cause. Wow. Now, where'd you see that? I'm looking at ESPN's website, and it's not up yet.
Yeah. I just got a bulletin on my phone that said ESPN News, and I'm watching on ESPN, and that's how I saw it will flash on the screen.
Wow. That's a tough one. Look what happened to Bob Huggins, the basketball coach at West Virginia. Again, the winningest coach at West Virginia basketball. He's gone because of some comments that he made. Then you got Fitzgerald, the winningest coach in Northwestern football. He's gone because of possible potential hazing. There's never been a time when you could, browbeat players. Maybe there was a time you could do that. But I think what happened was Frank Kush, who was the head football coach at Arizona State, finally, some of their players came forward because he was shoving them. He'd grab them by the throat. He'd run them up this mountain. I think they even called it Mount Kush at Arizona State. And he was more than a taskmaster. He was probably cruel. And somebody finally turned him in and they fired him. And boy, from that point on, players or coaches who do anything that could be considered abuse of players, they don't put up with it. If you do it and they can prove it, you're gone. And evidently that's what happened with Fitzgerald at Northwestern.
Frank Kush was a mean son of a gun.
Yeah, he was.
He was. If you ever saw an interview with that cat, he was something else.
It's interesting though. Again, that's very old school, and I'm not saying it's right. He won a lot of football games. Heard anything about Arizona football lately? Arizona State football?
No.
Not much.
No,
So
you talk about all the things that he did. If you've not seen the movie Junction Boys,
yeah.
pull,
Well, Bear Bryant did it,
yeah,
and
yeah, pull that up.
They will tell you that Bowden Wyatt, the guys that played for the 25 Little Pigs will say Bowden Wyatt did the same thing at Arkansas in the 50s. Did the same thing that Bear Bryant did at Junction. In fact, they'll say it was more brutal than Junction was. So, okay. Well, we've got the next hour coming up with Pat Bradley, and we can just talk like this, just like we are, or you can give us a call on Drive Time Sports, 501 661 1037. Welcome back to Drive Time Sports. We've got another hour tonight. Ray Tucker, Rick Schaeffer, Randy Rainwater's not with us tonight. He'll be back tomorrow night. And Ray, I hope that we are ready. I guess we can play your intro, and then we can play Pat Bradley's intro.
Ray Tucker on Drive Time Sports is brought to you by Gwatney Buick GMC.
And
it's now time to talk to Pat Bradley, presented by Whit Davis Lumber Plus, with 4 locations in Central Arkansas. Pat is also brought to you by Alcoa Community Federal Credit Union in Benton, with some of the lowest auto loan rates in Saline County.
Well, welcome, Pat. Are you having a nice Monday evening?
Pretty good, yes, gentlemen. How we doing?
Where are you?
I am. I'm back in Boston. Was in New York City for the better part of last week, and got a chance to go see some of the sights and sounds, and it was good. It was a good week. A lot of fun down there.
Were you really at the hot dog eating contest?
Oh, I was there. It is wild. Wild scene. It's and then I read an article that the next big thing is competitive eating. So we'll see if that ever comes to light.
You mean you think it's going to be more? You mean for like TV, just like July 4th is kind of traditional now, and Joey Chestnut wins all the time, and it's hot dogs. Now, we mentioned when you were on last week that he holds major league eating records in 54 different categories. Do you think we're going to see more of that? I mean, are sports networks that desperate for programming?
I think what we'll see, what they were trying to say is, you know, there's only a handful of people who make money doing it. But it was almost saying that, you know, that as the popularity is rising, more people are going to try to make a living, like Joey Chestnut is, winning tournaments and getting sponsors and all those, you know, sponsorships and deals and stuff like that. So who knows? I mean, it's everybody's always trying to find a different way to make some money, I guess.
Cuts down on your grocery bill.
Yeah.
Right. And think what they call sports, though. I mean, but think about it. There is ESPN, ESPN2, ESPNU, ESPN News. They're all on 24 hours a day. They got to have something. They don't have ESPN Classic anymore, so maybe they show some old stuff on one of those 3. I don't know. You got the SEC Network. They're showing stuff 24 hours a day, even when nothing's going on. You've got Fox Sports 1, and so that's a network to itself. I don't think they have Fox. Do they have Fox Sports? Do they have Fox Sports? Maybe they do. Yeah, okay. Plus FS1 and 2. Okay, so you got those 2. You got CBS Sports. NBC did away with NBC Sports, but they've got Peacock, which shows some live sports.
Well, we have an NBC Sports Boston channel.
Do you?
That, to your point, the content that they run is something else. It is. There's some really good shows. It's more localized shows. Actually, a friend of mine has a show on there called Cadillo's World, and he's a former bodybuilder, but he sort of transformed his house into a sort of, you know, you could go there and you can work out, you can eat, you get treatment, and he calls it Cadillo's World. So they'll shoot TV episodes there and sort of document what goes on there. So that's specific to their channel.
That's a tax write-off.
Yeah, right. So it's pretty cool. He said, I've been on there. The Gronkowskis have been on there. Jerry Cheevers, who's an old Bruins goalie, has been on there. So, but yeah, there's a lot of stations looking for a lot of content. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. And you got to think, my gosh, and particularly at this time of year, because here we are. Okay, we're a caller-driven show. Okay, Randy's not on. I know he's the star of the show. But Ray and we've talked about sports for quite a few years in our lives. I think we've had 5 calls tonight because it's a slow time. And so if it's a slow time on radio for people that love talking about the Razorbacks and all kinds of other sports, what must it be like on TV? There's just, what are you watching 24 hours a day? Now, I have to confess, I am not a big TV watcher, other than I do watch baseball some. And obviously in the football season, I watch college football and a little bit of pro football. But I'm not one of those that every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night, I got to have the TV on. So I don't know what's on these stations. What is on these stations? And there's also the golf network. There's the tennis network. There's Major League Baseball network. So what's on all these stations?
Well, my first go-to is the SEC network, of course.
Yeah.
ESPN. But then, I'm a Food Network, Cooking Channel, Create TV, the ID channel. I love all the murder, true crime murder stuff. And then I have to learn how to cook and watch,
But that's
watch
not
all the
that's
cooking
not
shows.
on those sports stations. So you're obviously not watching all these sports stations. Okay, so I just switched to the SEC network, and guess what? It's Missouri's first round game in the NCAA basketball tournament. Well, hot ziggity diggities, man! I couldn't wait to watch that again.
Is today Missouri Takeover Day? That's one thing I actually do. In the summertime, they take a whole day to show that one particular school's best games. Whether it's they call it like the Arkansas Takeover Day, where they'll show maybe the Sweet 16 win and football team's biggest win, baseball team's biggest win, maybe the gymnastics team's biggest win. So they'll do that for like a 24-hour period for content throughout the day.
Yeah.
All right, Pat.
That's right. So at 3:00 in the morning, you can watch something.
All right, Pat. Let's talk a little bit about Jordan Walsh's performance.
Yeah, he's a Celtic, and they got to be thrilled, aren't they?
Well, it's and we saw it, and that's the thing that
we did.
So, well, you knew that you watch him shoot the ball, and his jump shot was not broke. He had good mechanics on it. He just, at 18, needed to get more repetitions. His ball handling wasn't bad. It was just he needed to get stronger going to his left, more confident going to his left. We knew he was more than a willing defender, more than a willing rebounder. He had always seemed to have a great attitude. So when you come and talk about making jump shots and being able to dribble, to me, that's the easy part of basketball. The tough part, he already has the athleticism and the energy.
Well, maybe so, but if shooting's the easy part, but he hadn't shown that he was that great a shooter, and now all of a sudden, what's happened? Why all of a sudden are you looking at him? He goes out yesterday and hits his first 4 3-point shots. We never saw that before.
No, he could miss his next 4 though, and that's part of that's part of the journey of a young player. We know if you're going to be a 40% shooter, which is top of the heap, you can miss 6 in a row and then make 4 in a row. So I just always felt when it came to Jordan that he already had what is, in a sense, like the non-negotiables to be an NBA player. The size, athleticism, and the effort. And watching him in his jump shot, like I said, he had the makings of being consistent. And, give him, he had that time to do it, and he was able to do it. So, but listen, he could, unfortunately, just like many players, he could go the rest of the time and not make a 3.
Yeah, well, let's hope not. I mean, we're pulling for him.
Right, but I think, part of the he's going to be getting a lot of open looks because he shot 27% last year or whatever it is. So
right.
So that's the other side of it. If you're shooting open threes, it's definitely your percentage is going to go up. With him making what do you make 4?
He made 4 out of 6. They were his first.
Yeah. So you'd imagine now it's like, okay, this next game we're not going to slack off of Jordan Walsh. I mean, he's shown he can make it, or maybe they don't. Maybe they say, let's see if he can make 4 again.
Well, we'll
see if he
see.
can make 2 again, 1 again. But I just, it's he. Like I said, he had the, all those other things that he felt like he had the opportunity. Now, it is obviously still 1 game in the summer league, so there's a long. Right. He's got a long way to go, as we know.
All right, Pat.
Okay,
just like
hold on. Let's go ahead and take a
that
call.
top draft.
We talked about we only had 5 callers so far. So here's number 6, Trey in North Little Rock. Hi, Trey. Thanks for calling.
Hey, glad to be on. Pat, I appreciate your commentary on the SEC Network and this station. The second is my question. So UA-Lawrence moved conferences out of the Sun Belt. How do you think that's going to affect their recruiting, or do you think that helps, hurts, especially in basketball? I know they're one of the few non-football schools in the Sun Belt for the past couple of years. I just wanted to see what y'all thought about them changing, and I'll hang up and listen.
All right, Trey. Thanks for calling. What do you think, Pat? And then we'll let Ray take a shot at it too, since he does their basketball.
Well, that's Ray's department, so I'm gonna let him go first.
You know what? With the transfer portal, it's a totally different world now. And I don't care what league you're in. Now, did I like being in the Sun Belt? Yes. People go like, why did they leave the Sun Belt? Well, they got booted out by the Sun Belt because the new commissioner wanted all football. And so Little Rock and Texas Arlington both got the boot. And the Sun Belt went out and added some really nice schools also. And so last year was our first time around the Ohio Valley Conference. I know going in, Darryl and his staff felt pretty good. They felt like they could compete. And if a team had bad luck, Little Rock had all theirs last year. They don't need any more bad luck. I would guess we probably lost 6 or 7 games, maybe 8, that we were with 2 minutes left. We were within a couple of points and couldn't close out. I went to my first Trojan practice today. The guys are working out. I really, just eyeball. They passed the eyeball test. I will say that. They've got some size. The Mitchell twin that transferred in from Arkansas had a nice visit with him. Really nice young man. I'll tell you that. I have one of my championship rings on. He said, "What's it say on the other side?" I says, "That's Daryl's slogan. It says defense travels." He said, "I love defense." I said, "Good, you're going to fit in well here then. I'll tell you that." But very, very nice. Got the chance to visit with KK Robinson. It was a new addition to the Little Rock's team. Got quite a scare. Their best player, all-conference player, Anthony Gordon, stepped on somebody's foot and rolled his ankle. Was down for a while, but he didn't come back and finish practice. So that was good news. They've got, I think there's 3 players that aren't there, won't be here till the fall, and they're from Serbia. And one of them's a 6'11" kid. I don't know much about him, but every year when you talk to coaches, they're excited about their group. And when you had all but 3 players leave, now you got a chance to form new chemistry with these guys. And so, and talking with the strength coach, John Barron, I always get JB's take on the guys. And he said, this is a really good group of kids. And so, they've had some guys that left last year. Go ahead, Pat. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you have a senior guard, KK Robinson, obviously, Mitchell has played a lot of college basketball, and that those are the things that are still valuable, very valuable in college basketball. Is having those older players. We've seen it over the last few years how impactful because of the extra COVID year, a lot of these guys are getting, that how impactful it is to have experienced, tough veteran players, especially for a coach like Darryl Walker. I mean, Coach Walker is, he's going to demand the best, and so you better be ready and tough for that.
They've got a guard that transferred in from Boise State. That one of the coaches said to me, "Hey, Chuck, this kid right here, keep an eye on him. He can shoot it as well as anybody." I said, "Anybody?" He said, "Anybody." And so he's recovering from ankle surgery, but I wasn't a little wrong. Didn't have last year. They may have now as shooters. If you can't score, you can't win.
That's right. Got to put the ball in the hole. What about the changing leagues, Pat? And do you think, as you look particularly at the Power 5 leagues, is this changing leagues over, or are we still going to see a little bit more of it?
I don't think that's really ever going to change, to be honest with you, because I from what I've seen is schools are always positioning themselves, because they know football brings in a lot, to position themselves to be stronger and bring in more money. And there's it actually, what surprises me a lot is a lot of the schools that I remember even growing up being Division II schools even are now Division I. And so I think with the more money that's being brought in, the more schools are trying to not only add football, but be in Division I for basketball. And that, I think in itself, is going to create some transition with the conferences. And then the other thing is, it's like, we think of them as institutions, and you guys know, like, the institutions are the people. And you get a new person in there that's calling the shots, and they may have a completely different viewpoint.
Yeah.
And say, well, I think this other conference is best for us. So, as long as you got people making decisions, those decisions are always going to change, is what I'm guessing.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Big 12 has a new commissioner, and this year they have 14 teams. Next year,
isn't he a
will have
TV exec?
Yeah.
Is that the guy who's a television executive?
I think you're right. Yes. Yeah. But he was not a commissioner. That's right. A couple of the new commissioners were not commissioners, including the Big 10 guy too. So 14 this year, Texas and Oklahoma leave, 12 next year. He's already saying he would like to have 14 next year. Now, nobody knows what that means. Nobody knows where they're coming from. Huh?
Isn't it about content? Right.
Well, but nobody knows who he's talking about. Okay, we got another caller. Let's take that, and we'll continue this discussion. But let's go to Lomax. Lomax, thanks for calling.
Hey, what's going on, Rick, Ray, and Mr. Pat, the shooter? How y'all doing today?
Good thank you. Thanks for calling.
My favorite people in Arkansas, besides my mom. Got a couple quick questions.
Okay.
I'm not in Arkansas, so. But my question is, my first question is for Pat. Pat, and I know this might be a difficult question, but if Mike Anderson was coaching this team that we had now, I know Muss is defense and everything, and I know we can't really get it on the offense. I know, but my question is, who's going to start for this Arkansas Razorback, 2023-24 basketball? If you can answer that, I would definitely like to hear your take on that, sir.
That's
Who's
a good
one.
Start?
No, hold on. Are you asking him who is going to start? And if Mike Anderson's if Mike Anderson was the coach, would it be the same guys or?
Okay, I guess it's two part. Yeah, who's going to start now? And then, do you think Well, I don't hate to compare the two because they both are great. But do you think Mike could take this team, this new team that we have now, a little bit further than what Muss can do?
Well, first of all,
Mike would probably.
Go ahead, Pat. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Ray. No, I was going to say it probably look a little bit different. I would imagine. The coaches, recruit differently and bring in different players.
Well, first of all, Mike never brought in players of this caliber. Very few.
True.
Well, he brought in Bobby Portis. He had a couple, but not in these large numbers. Yeah.
But he didn't sign 3
this was
5-stars or
also
4 5-stars.
No, and Mike also. Well, Portis was, but there. Then you're talking about
But that's
one
one.
plus he didn't have the transfer portal at Arkansas. That hadn't been that wasn't a thing yet.
Yeah.
So that's
NIL.
That's not comparing apples to apples, I don't think.
Right. No.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
And I think it was, and I mean, yeah, just some sort of discussions we've had going back. It's different time in a different situation, taking over the programs, and it is kind of difficult to compare. Yeah, I would say.
Yeah, I know, and I was thinking that, and I know that was a difficult question, and then I guess my next question is, I know you guys callers lined up, even though I think I was the seventh caller because I called in because there wasn't enough people calling. But for Rick,
and we appreciate you, believe me.
Yeah,
no.
All right, well, Lomax, since you're here, we're playing the music. Hang on, and we'll talk to you. When
Okay.
you can ask me whatever you want to when we come back from the break. All right, that's Lomax. We'll have him again in a minute. Pat Bradley, Ray Tucker, Rick Schaeffer. We're back after this on Drive Time Sports.
It's now time to talk to Pat Bradley, presented by Whit Davis Lumber Plus, with 4 locations in Central Arkansas. Pat is also brought to you by Alcoa Community Federal Credit Union in Benton, with some of the lowest auto loan rates in Saline County.
So, Pat, why don't you tell us about Whit Davis?
WhitDavis.com is the website, and they can help you if you're a first-time painter. Never painted a room, don't worry about it. They can help you plan each step to make it quick. Don't worry about anything. No fuss about it. You can head over to Whit Davis in Jacksonville, Sherwood, or Greenbrier, and you'll find what they call the Valspar, VALSPAR, medallion colors, the best you could possibly imagine, including the perfect one for what you're looking for. Medallion's the only paint and primer with color affinity, and it provides one coat color that lasts. One coat color that lasts. So you don't have to overdo it. Get down to business. Don't settle for anything less than Valspar medallion paint and primer at Whit Davis Lumber Plus. Now that's something you'll always remember, right? Valspar. That's a unique name now, Rick.
There you go.
Valspar.
That's great. Well, we'll tell you.
Not easy for me to say, but.
Okay, 10 rounds are done in the Major League Baseball draft. Nobody drafted that has any Razorback ties with the 10th round, so we will tell you no other news there. They'll draft 11 through 20 tomorrow. Let's go back to Lomax. Thanks for holding with us, Lomax.
Hey, no problem, Rick. And my other part of my question was, obviously, it's the draft, MLB draft, and I wanted to know, because I know you have the stats, and, Google just wasn't fast enough for me where I live at, because I'm in the part of Tennessee where I don't get it that quick. How did we fare up in the last 3-year draft, or the last 3 years as far as the MLB, and how did our players do? And I've been really wanting to know that. I mean, I've been following Kopp and a few other guys, but kind of want to get your take on that, and just to kind of see, was this a disappointment this year, where we were drafted at and everything, and just kind of just go from there.
Okay, well, I can tell you that if you look at the last 2 or 3 drafts, obviously Isaiah Campbell in the last 3 years, I think I'm correct, is the first one to make it to the major leagues. You have to go back to the 2015 draft. Andrew Benintendi got drafted. The next year he's up in the major leagues. Nobody's taken it that fast. Heston Kjerstad was slowed by, the heart situation that he had. So he missed it in about 1.5 years after he was drafted number 2 by the Orioles. So he's 24 years old now, but he just went from AA to AAA. His numbers this year are very good. He just played in the Futures game, went 1 for 2 in the Futures game. And you got to believe that if he continues to hit like he is, now the major leagues can't expand their rosters as much as they used to. They go from 26 to 28 in September, but I got to believe he's going to have a chance to be one of those 2 guys that gets called up to the Orioles late in the season. He'll have a chance to make their major league team next spring. As you think of some of the other guys, I don't know that anybody else is even close right now to making the major leagues. We look at Rod Moore from last year's team. He's doing okay. He's hitting about 233, I believe, in minor league baseball. He's at a high A team right now. I think that the guy that's really kind of turned it on lately is Caden Wallace. He's playing high A with the Royals. His average is 267, but he was much lower than that. So he's picked it up. I don't know how soon we'll see him, but the Royals are so bad, you'd have to think that he'll have a chance to move up very quickly. Casey Martin had a very slow start with the Phillies, but now he's at their AA affiliate. He's hitting 263, got a chance to move up some. Those are probably the best shots. I'm trying to think if there's anybody besides Kjerstad that's at AAA. Grant Koch, the catcher, who's from Fayetteville, is actually with the Pirates AAA affiliate, but he's not hitting very much there, so I don't know what his chances are. Let's see, anybody else at AAA? Matt Reynolds, of course, he's been in the major leagues, and they hope to get back there someday. So those are Jalen Beeks has been with Tampa Bay for quite a while. He got sent down to AAA, pitching so-so at this point. Again, Campbell, we talked about, just got picked up. Matt Cronin who has pitched on that team that almost won the national championship. He's at the Nationals AAA team, 13 strikeouts in 14 innings. I think he's got a chance. His ERA is not that good, but I think at some point he's got a chance to be called up. Kevin Kopps hadn't moved. AA, that's just where he's been. AA, he's 3-3, 3.66 ERA. He's a guy that had a sensational last year at Arkansas. I'm not sure he's a guy that's going to make it to the major leagues. And let's see. No other pitchers from Arkansas or even at AAA. So that's kind of a rundown of those guys. How about that? And none of them are with the Boston Red Sox, Pat. Not that you'd care, right?
Not this year. Not this year anyway.
That's right. So I got to tell you a line. So I'm watching MLB Network, and they had at one time grouped together. They had Pedro Martinez, Albert Pujols, Ken Griffey Jr., and David Ortiz, and Harold Reynolds and their anchor guy, and they are just having a great time talking and all that kind of stuff. And Harold Reynolds at one time played on a team with Ken Griffey, and he said, "Ken, you never warmed up. Why not?" And he said, "Cheetahs don't warm up." I thought that was a pretty good line. Because Ken Griffey Jr. was a great player, very athletic, fast. He said, "Cheetahs don't warm up. They don't stretch. So they just
go.
They just go." That's right. So I thought that was a pretty good line. Okay, you were talking about Walsh, obviously, with Boston. How about Anthony Black yesterday? 17 points, 5 rebounds, had assists, steals. He is turning the ball over. Is that something that he can cure at the NBA level? Because he turned over a lot at Arkansas. He had 7 turnovers in the game yesterday.
Yeah, I think that, the summer league is pretty unique because when he starts playing with the Orlando Magic, he'll be playing with a former top pick in the draft, Paulo Banchero, who's one heck of a player. So I think there's a tendency for some players who know that they are their team's top pick of that year. Trying to show what they can do. And, at times maybe not do a little too much, but not on the same page with some of the other players. I think, there's been a lot of turnovers just because you're learning tendencies, you're learning plays, you're learning what you can and can't do. So and of course, when he gets on the, during the regular season, everything, not saying it's going to be easier, but it's certainly going to be a lot clearer what to do and where you're going and what's expected of you. So, yeah, I think he's been outside of Jordan Walsh, and I think everybody was sort of magnifying Jordan Walsh because he was a second-round pick, and was he second round? Yeah, it was second round, right?
Yeah, early second round.
And he, made 4 threes, but outside of that, Anthony Black, being a top 10 pick, certainly solidified he belongs in that category.
Pat, what do you think about the Spurs shutting their guy down?
Not surprising. It's funny. It's like they were almost waiting for him to have a good game, and then but that's the challenge though. With I think it was it the Oklahoma City Thunder's pick last year, Chet Holmgren. He gets hurt for the season, misses the entire season.
Yeah.
And I know you can't stop these guys from playing, so you almost can't prevent them from getting injured. But you almost want to showcase them maybe for a game or two, and then and then kind of bring them along with workouts and camps and things like that. So I'm sure he wants to play, as all those guys want to play. But that's I'd probably still play him. The more reps, the better.
Well, how about going from 2 for 13 in one game to 27 points in the next?
Yeah, that just kind of is a perfect example, though, of what everything is new, learning, having an off night, all those things coming together. And I think it's probably been such a whirlwind for him, not even just this last month with getting drafted, but playing his professional season in France. And really, it hasn't been until this year, because the people who follow this stuff were talking about him last year and the year before, but really, globally, it's really been this last year that this kid Wembanyama has been thrown onto the stage, getting comparisons by LeBron, getting compared to some of the greats, which I think everybody's just going to slow down on that.
The thing, Pat, that really surprised me was, some of his comments after the first game when he didn't play well. Was he said, well, I'm lost. I didn't know what to do. Whatever. How are you going to learn the system if you're not playing?
Yeah. Maybe I'm sure what they'll do
it in 2 days, right?
Yeah. But again, Ray, I don't know their roster inside and out, but I don't know how many of those guys. I know they have a young roster. I don't know how many of those guys that they're going to be. They're going to be playing alongside them when it comes to some of the real games, regular season games. And to be quite honest with you, I mean, next year, it's not like he's going to be, have the Spurs in contention to win the Western Conference, and he's going to be like a, top 5 MVP vote. It's going to take a couple of years for him to, himself and the Spurs to get back in any kind of conversation.
But what is he, 7'3"? You can't coach a guy to be that, can you?
Right, exactly. I mean, again, he's got, and that's why everybody's banking on him. He's got, he's had the chance to play against pros in France, obviously last year. I don't know. I think the year before he might have played. I don't know. I think they brought him up maybe full time this past year to play in the top pro league. Just because a couple of years ago, he's just so young. He might have played 2 years or partially, but yeah, he's got that. He can shoot it. So he's already shown that he can compete. There's no doubt about that. Now, can he take over and dominate? That's a different story.
Okay, well, a different story is our last segment. It's coming up. You can call us 501-661-1037. We'll be back again with Pat Bradley and Ray Tucker, Rick Schaeffer, right after this timeout. Well, it's not Randy Rainwater, but for the last time tonight, we don't have to say it's Randy Rainwater because he'll be back tomorrow night. But Ray Tucker's in Central Arkansas. Pat Bradley's in the Boston area. And Pat, you've got all these sponsors that sponsor you. Who would you like to talk about now?
Our good friends at Alcoa Community FCU.org. Right now, you can get a fantastic fun loan, auto, boat, RV, you name it, for 2.49%. And the good news is you can go to their website, alcoacommunityfcu.org. You can apply securely online for that and take advantage of the great deals going on right now while you can. Summertime, time to have some fun, time to take advantage of some savings at Alcoa Community Federal Credit Union in Benton. At the website again is alcoacommunityfcu.org.
Very, very good. Okay, so we've talked about a couple Razorbacks. What about Nick Smith Jr.? You know, he never got a chance to get on track much at Arkansas. He had 2 or 3 really good games when he came back, but that was it. Not a good NCAA tournament. And again, we're talking about the summer league. That's when these guys start playing for the first time, not shooting that great. What about, where do you think Nick Smith Jr. is right now in as he launches his NBA career?
Yeah, I think I don't think anybody was wrong about Nick. And obviously, it's, when you are a freshman projected to be a lottery pick, I think it's such a, it could go either way because it's already risky, right? Because you don't have as much information on a lot of these guys as you'd like to. And then Nick, unfortunately, couldn't find the consistency because of his injury. And, he comes back and, plays a couple of games, has 1-2 good games, and then again the injury. So I think looking at it, teams maybe weren't sure, and I thought he had some really good workouts. So I was surprised that he went as late as he did. And then I know he had, some good production in the summer league, which didn't surprise me because, like I said, I mean, he's still that same player that's got good size, good speed, aggressive, understands how to come off the high ball screen. So, I think, I think he's going to have a long career in the NBA, hopefully injury wise, he'll be fine. But, it might take a little time for him. I think that's, I know people probably don't think about it as in detail as someone who, follows basketball close, very, as much as we do. But, it's getting drafted is one of the most difficult things any professional athlete can do. And then being able to have a long NBA career, never mind being an all-star in the NBA. I mean, you could look, somebody put out a tweet and it listed all the second-round picks that were still on rosters each year. And it was like 1, 2, none, from the last 5 years. So I think, we tend to build things up and it's just based off the information that you have. But I think he'll, he's played well and I think he's still got what we thought he had, that size, ability to shoot, handle it, a nice pull-up jumper. So he'll be all right.
Is this an indication of even some of the guys that are the one and dones? You're still saying, okay, they're done here at Arkansas or wherever they play. They go for a year, but it's still 2 or 3 years. But the faster they get out, even if it's their third year, when they really start playing close to their capabilities, then they're ready to sign a new contract.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. That's it. I tried to go back and look at the year the years where it sort of went from seniors and juniors and guys like that to now. It is just freshmen and some sophomores and Europeans or overseas. Doesn't have to be necessarily Europe. because that's just it happened. I don't know what 15 years ago maybe, to where now it's it is. It's all it's the draft, and that's why you look. Everybody wants to point to whether it's a '96 draft or 84 draft was pretty good. Maybe the late '90s is where it stopped being like, okay, Allen Iverson's a surefire all-star. Ray Allen is a surefire all-star. I think Antoine Walker was in that class, if I'm not mistaken. I think '96. He's a surefire all-star. It's like now he's a good player. He was a great player in high school, obviously, but you don't. It's just much more difficult now to put that label on anybody outside of LeBron or somebody. Even a guy like Kobe Bryant, when he was coming out of high school, he was still. There were people who were like, yes, this kid is going to be the next big one. But there were people clearly who didn't, because he was overlooked by some. So I think it's just when you're drafting one and done 18, 19-year-olds, it's as difficult as anything you're going to find to do. You look at Kwame Brown versus Kevin Garnett. I mean,
yeah.
And Kwame was number one, which Kwame Brown had actually a long career in the NBA. It wasn't, the only reason
as good as
people call him a
Garnett.
bust, but
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like, but that's, I think it's funny because like somebody has to get drafted number one.
Yeah.
Right? We're in the rules. I mean, it'd be nice if it's like the best player, sure. But I mean, Kwame Brown played for a long time, so was he a bust for number one? I mean, I guess was he a bust for an NBA player? No. I mean, the guy played I don't know how many years, but he played more than anybody. Played a lot more than anybody we know. So it's just. We know it's an art, not a science, when you come to drafting.
Yep, you're right. Okay, before we ask you the final question for the evening, Ray Tucker's on here with Ray Tucker Outdoors. So Ray, we got a couple minutes left. What are you going to be talking about tonight?
We're going to explore the sport of falconry. We've got a guest in the studio right now with us, and we have someone from Jonesboro that's going to join us who is a national officer in the organization. And so we're going to educate people on the sport of falconry. And just sitting here visiting with our guest, I promise it's going to be very, very interesting and
very
entertaining.
Good. Great, good. That's coming up right after this. Okay, Pat, time for one more question. We've asked about the other Razorbacks. What have you seen from Ricky Council in the Summer League?
Ricky, I actually haven't seen a 76ers game, but I know he's had a good, I don't know how many.
Oh, his numbers are good. Yeah, really good.
Yeah, his numbers are good. Which is, I mean, again, it's not a surprise because, he's got one of the non-negotiables, 6'6", athletic. That already puts him competitive. He's already competitive. And now it's about putting yourself in the position to be successful. Don't try to take shots you're not comfortable taking. Don't get the ball in a position where you don't know where to get it out of. And that comes with learning the game. And I really, really think last year helped him immensely because he came to Arkansas. Everybody thought he was just a slasher. And he became somebody who put the ball in his hands and he learned I say learn. He says, something he could always do. He was given the opportunity to come off screens and show what he can do as a straight scorer. So, as long as he continues to play to his strengths and improve his weaknesses, I felt like he was somebody that could be on an NBA team undrafted. And I don't know if, he contributes right away, but, you can throw him in there. We watched the kid, Bruce Brown, that just won a championship with the Denver Nuggets just by understanding how to play the game.
Okay, good stuff, Pat. Appreciate that. Appreciate the callers we had tonight. You can now stay tuned for Ray Tucker's Outdoors, and we hope you'll join us tomorrow night for Drive Time Sports.